Exposed, 7 unexplained ghostly encounters with sinister shapeshifters haunting your NIGHT. Sarah Turner gripped the steering wheel with white knuckles as she pulled into her driveway, the weight of exhaustion hanging heavy on her shoulders. It had been another long night at the diner, the grease and laughter still lingering in her clothes, but tonight there was something else, a disturbance in the air. Shadows flickered in her yard, twisting in unnatural ways, like dark silhouettes whispering secrets. Goosebumps prickled her skin as she stepped out of the car. "Just the trees," she muttered under her breath, but even the night felt like it was holding its breath, the usual chorus of crickets silenced. As she stepped inside, a chill swept through her, heavier than the late autumn air. Locking the door behind her, she glanced at the wall clock, a harbinger of the quiet stillness that enveloped her modest house. Her 2 young children slept soundly upstairs, blissfully unaware of the weight bearing down on their mother's heart. With shaking hands, Sarah set the kettle on for tea, her mind churning with an unsettling mix of fatigue and anxiety. She could feel the weight of the shadows pressing against her window. Then she noticed Mrs. Heffernan, the sweet old lady from next door, stood shrouded in darkness, her familiar smile now a twisted grimace. Fear knotted in Sarah's gut. Why was she out there at this hour? As she turned away, her son Jacob padded into the room, bleary-eyed and innocent. "Mommy?" he asked, his voice a tender echo against the fear coiling in Sarah's chest. "Just a nightmare," she whispered, though her own heart raced with a different kind of dread. She stepped closer to the window, her instincts screaming at her. "What's the matter with you, Sarah? It's just the neighbors, or is it?" Suddenly, she couldn't shake the stories her grandmother once told her, tales of shapeshifters hidden among friendly faces, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. "Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Each night, Sarah had been lulled into a false sense of safety, but each story replayed in her mind like a relentless nightmare of its own. Just then, the gentle chime of her phone vibrated across the counter. It was a message from Mr. Jennings, the new neighbor who had moved in with that perfect smile. He'd brought cookies for her children earlier, charming them effortlessly. How could someone be so perfect? The feeling snaked down her spine. Was it paranoia? Or intuition whispering dark warnings? And then it escalated. The next day, she found her daughter playing in Mr. Jennings' yard, laughter drifting lazily through the air like golden leaves caught in a breeze. The growing knot in her stomach twisted tighter. The darkness deepened, her heartbeat drumming the rhythm of anxiety. Suddenly, a loud crash shattered the stillness from the backyard. Her heart leaped into her throat as a deep growl reverberated like a haunting melody, the kind that chilled every bone in her body. The whispers in the air turned to a chorus of sinister sounds, her mind racing with terror. Those familiar faces around her, were they really innocent? Or were they the predators hiding in plain sight? As Sarah gripped the kitchen knife tightly, her breath came quick and fast. What lurked just beyond her walls? The line between reality and nightmare blurred further with every second that ticked by. She had no choice but to confront the darkness creeping into her children's lives. With a determination boiling in her veins, she prepared herself for what lay ahead, aware that the true monsters might just be the ones she'd so easily trusted. The night held secrets, and now, they were growing too close for comfort. Panic surged through Sarah as she backed away from the window, knife poised like a lifeline against uncertainty. The howling wind outside carried strange sounds, grating whispers that tangled into the night air, a symphony of horror, chilling her to the core. She wanted to scream, but the thought of waking her children clawed at her throat. "Jacob! Emma!" she called softly, forcing her voice to steady. The children remained blissfully ignorant, that precious innocence now a painful burden as she stood on the precipice of fear. A sudden rustle outside made her freeze. The branches creaked against her house, resembling twisted fingers trying to pry their way in. Her eyes darted toward the back door, half expecting to see the familiar figure of Mr. Jennings standing with that faceless grin. Was he truly what he seemed, or a specter threading deception? Tension thickened in the air. She tiptoed toward the door, each step a battle against the suffocating silence. The deep growl echoed again, closer this time. What was out there? Shadows danced behind the window, darkening with every creak of her floorboards. Panic clawed until she could feel her heart thrumming against her chest. She twisted the doorknob slowly, straining to crack open the door without making a sound. The backyard stretched out in a pool of darkness, shrouded in mystery. A silhouette flickered near her children's playset. Sarah's breath hitched in her throat as she leaned closer, the air around her pregnant with danger. "Hello?" she whispered hoarsely, terrified the sound would attract whatever lurked outside. No response came, just the hollow wind taunting her. Suddenly, a faint giggle floated on the breeze, her daughter's laugh. Sarah's stomach dropped. Emma had gone outside, against her wishes. The playful innocence tangled grotesquely with the foreboding aura that had settled over their home. "Emma!" Sarah called again, more urgency edging her voice. She slammed the door open, stepping into the damp night air, gripping the knife like a weapon against unseen evil. The world felt unreal, a nightmare that pushed against the boundaries of her sanity. She swept her gaze across the yard, desperately searching for her daughter. The shadows shifted, elongating ominously, swallowing every trace of light. "Stay where you are." She barked into the abyss, but the night only answered with silence. Then she spotted them, two figures by the swings, swaying gently, eerily in sync. Their faces were shrouded, cloaked in the dimness, shadows obscuring everything familiar. "Mommy!" Jacob's petite voice pierced the stillness, but it sounded far too distant, as if they were calling from another realm. A heavy weight settled on Sarah's heart. Careful not to startle them, she approached, each step a leap into the unknown. Behind her, rustling leaves caught her attention. Sarah spun around, breath hitching in her throat. Mrs. Heffernan was there, but her once kind eyes were void, replaced by an unsettling glint. "You shouldn't have let the darkness in, dear," she croaked, voice raspy like dried leaves. They've always been watching. Sarah felt the chill of dread wrap around her as she glanced back at the children, who seemed frozen in time, bathed in shadows, witnesses of a sinister transformation. "Run!" she screamed, but both Jacob and Emma stood unmoving, mouths agape and gasps devoid of sound, as the figures turned towards them, revealing eyes that glowed, a fierce hunger lurking within. A scream broke through the night, cutting the air like a shard of glass. Which one would be taken? The shadows beckoned, the darkness craved as Sarah lunged forward, knife gripped tightly in her hands. She felt a presence wrap around the back of her neck, a cold, clammy grip whispering promises of despair. What emerged from the darkness was more than she could have ever imagined. "Do you think you can fight us?" whispered the voice of Mr. Jennings, yet something inhuman seeped through, escaping like a burst of acrid smoke. What had she unleashed on her children? Desperation clawed at her mind. What were these monsters really? As Sarah faced the encroaching dread, trembling yet defiant, a shocking realization seized her heart: darkness had never truly been a stranger. But with every passing second, the stakes escalated and time was running out. The breath of despair brushed against Sarah's skin. The shadows hovered, merging and morphing, the air thick with something foul as the mockery of Mr. Jennings echoed in her ears. It was one thing to live in fear of the unknown, it was worse to confront it, to face the very essence of that dread. "Let them go," she cried, her voice trembling as she raised the knife. But the children, entranced by what lurked in the dark, remained still. Their eyes wide and shimmering reflected a nightmarish light, entrapping Sarah's heart in a vice grip of terror. The figures by the swing set advanced, their movements fluid as if part of the wind itself. They drew closer, forming a semicircle around the children, who stood unblinking, as if in some trance. The figures were grotesque, shifting between familiar forms and distorted visages, fusing into a monstrous parody of the loved ones Sarah had known. It was a wild dance of nightmares, a grotesque melange of faces she thought she recognized. Mommy Jacob's voice broke with innocence, yet the tone was hauntingly distorted. "No!" She surged forward, desperate to break the spell, the knife glinting nervously in her grip. "Karen! Anne! Let them go!" She screamed at the figures, their shapes flickering ominously. The apparition of Mrs. Heffernan glided forward, her smile a chilling facade. "They've made their choice, dear. Just like you once, she croaked, her voice betraying nothing but an otherworldly echo. A cold tendril snaked around Sarah's waist, pulling her back with unyielding force. There, lurking in the corner of her vision, was another shadow, darker than the rest, thick and broad. It held her paralyzed, the terror sinking deeper as a new voice reverberated in her skull, stripped of emotion, yet saturated with primal hunger. You crave safety, yet you have welcomed us, it taunted. What a beautiful family you've created, Sarah. You can't take them back, but you could join them. Eyes blazing, Sarah fought against the grip. No. I won't let you take them. With a surge of adrenaline, she broke free and lunged toward her children. In her mind, a distant flicker of hope ignited. She had to reach them, to break whatever spell had ensnared them. As she drew near, the figures recoiled slightly, the air thickening with dark energy. Children! She shouted, voice cracking with fear, come back to me. You are safe with me. The children stood as if awakening from a midnight dream, confusion clouding their eyes. Jacob blinked, and for a moment, Sarah saw his spirit return, the spark of recognition igniting. But it was fleeting. That one help, the shadows hissed, inching closer again. In that moment, she felt palpable despair. Had they truly already chosen? A piercing shriek erupted from Emma's tiny lips, shattering the stillness of the night. Help us, Mommy! And just like that, it was a breaking point, pulling at the threads of fear gnawing at her insides. Then the ground beneath them trembled. Blades of grass bent and swayed as if surrendering to an invisible force. A cold gust swept past Sarah, and darkness coiled around like serpents, ready to strike. What are you? She gasped, caught between fight and flight. We are the shadows that dwell within, one figure hissed, exuding a sense of terrible triumph. We thrive on the light of your love. And tonight we feast. Panic washed over her. Every instinct urged her to flee, yet the thought of abandoning her children was unbearable. Just then, there was a crack of lightning overhead, momentarily illuminating the chaos around her. In that flash, Sarah glimpsed a fleeting form among the shadows, a figure she hadn't anticipated, her husband, his face a mask of torment and rage. Was he lost to her, too? The children gasped, turning to her, seeking assurance. For a fleeting heartbeat, they appeared as they were the innocent children she loved. But the shadows surged forward, threatening to swallow them whole. A violent surge of protectiveness erupted within Sarah. With a heart full of determination, she screamed, "You won't take them." As the darkness lunged, she was ready, holding the knife aloft. A cacophony of despair and defiance mingled, feeding the night with cursed screams. What price would she pay to save them? And if the light within her faded, would she still be fighting the shadows, or simply joining their malevolent embrace? As the dichotomy of light and dark roared to life, Sarah felt time collapsing around her, but just then, an unfamiliar voice rang out, cutting through the chaos, deep, resonant, and filled with a promise of reckoning. Enough! What awaited them on the other side of that word? The word hung in the air like a thunderclap, reverberating through the night, shattering the suffocating tension. Sarah's heart raced, a wild drum in her chest, as all eyes including the shadowy figures turned toward the source of the voice. A tall silhouette stood before them, outlined by a spectral glow, a stark contrast to the enveloping darkness. The figure shifted, solidifying into the visage of her husband, Tom. But there was something unsettling about him. His eyes flickered with an odd mix of anger and sorrow. Tom? Her voice cracked with hope and fear, struggling to pierce the grim atmosphere. She wanted to rush into his arms, to feel the warmth of his presence against the threatening chill. But he stood firm, as if he were both there and not, a fragment of the man she loved. You don't understand. He shouted over the tethering winds, his voice filled with urgency. They've twisted the truth. They're feeding on your pain. The figures around them twisted and contorted, their shrieks rising in harmony with the swirling shadows. The children were still entranced, their vacant eyes reflecting the horror unfolding around them. A knot tightened in Sarah's stomach. Help us, Daddy! Emma's voice rang out, pure, innocent, but overshadowed by the horror grasping at them. No! Tom yelled, stepping closer. You have to break this cycle. Fight back. Sarah could feel the darkness pressing against her, seeking to drain her resolve. The shadows slithered forward, their grotesque faces shifting into forms she half-recognized: neighbors, friends, faces she once trusted. They craved the family bond, Tom continued, his voice echoing against the chilling howls that surrounded them. Your love is their banquet, Sarah. You must sever the ties. Sever, she whispered, her mind racing. What could she sever? The shadows were closing in, pulling at her heartstrings, their whispers stabbing her with memories steeped in pain and regret. She turned to the children, battling the despair threatening to drown her. Fight it. You are not theirs. In that moment, she felt a flicker of movement near her. Tom lunged forward, the glow around him intensifying, his presence a mix of warmth and desperation. I'll hold them off. No. She cried, fear spiked with rage. We'll do this together. Thomas' face twisted, its anguish cutting deep. You can't. If I stay, I'll be lost. You must break free, for all of us. The shadows paused, their attention briefly diverted, sensing the tension in the air. Sarah's mind surged with conflicting emotions. Did she have the strength to save him? To save her children? Let go of the past. Let go of me. Thomas' voice rang out, trembling with fear and determination. The shadows began to move again, surging like a tidal wave, hungry for their fear, ready to swallow them whole. With a harrowing scream, Sarah dug deep within herself, embracing every joyful memory, every moment of laughter, every heartbeat filled with love, turning it into a shield. I won, let you win. As the shadows charged forward, she lifted the knife, not in anger, but in resolve. You will not take us. Steel met shadow, clashing against the dark with a force that rattled the world around them. A bright light exploded from her heart, shining through the darkness like a beacon of hope. But then the ground shuddered beneath them, threatening to split. The shadows, though howling in pain, began to rise, retreating as if struck by the light, but Sarah sensed their persistence, a hunger that wouldn't die so easily. What are you doing? Tom yelled, his voice swallowed by the chaos. This was far from over. Suddenly, as if the very fabric of night tore apart, she felt a stinging pain rip through her wrist. Her grip on the knife faltered. In that millisecond of vulnerability, one shadow lunged forward, darker than all the rest. It lunged for her children, tendrils of darkness reaching for their small forms, ready to reclaim what it thought was rightfully its. Sarah! Tom roared, but the earth's tremor drowned out his plea. In that blinding moment, she faced a choice. Would she sacrifice the still flickering flame of her love in a desperate attempt to shield them, or ignite all her strength to break the cycle? As the knife slipped from her fingers, spiraling away into the darkness, a crushing realization hit her. What would happen if the shadows won? The ground split open wide, revealing a gaping void. And a chilling whisper echoed through the night, chilling her to the bone. Join us in the midst of the chaos. Sarah felt the weight of a decision, one that could seal their fate forever. Would she follow the shadows, or could her love bind them together against oblivion? The darkness beckoned, and the abyss yawned wider, ready to consume all. What choice would she ultimately make? The void beneath her opened wider, a gaping maw eager to swallow them whole. Sarah's heart pounded like a jackhammer, each beat echoing the terror clawing at her insides. The shadows writhed, reaching claws sprouting from their amorphous forms, and hunger resonated in their freezing howls. Sarah! Thomas' voice was a desperate howl, but fear had a tight grip around her heart, making it heavy as lead. She was losing him. Losing them all. Of the shadows were closer now, almost here. She could feel their icy breath on her skin, a chill that snuffed out the warmth of love. Desperation shot through her like a lightning bolt. No! She screamed, as she fought against the torrent of darkness pulling her apart. Fight them! Tom urged, the spectral glow around him flickering. But how? The knife! It had slipped into the unknown, her only hope fading away. Each second felt eternal, and with it, the shadows grew bold. They twisted into protruding shapes of her family, mocking her with faces she loved. Her parents, their eyes hollow, pleading for her to join them. Sarah, they whispered in a chorus, their voices coating her with despair. She staggered back, trapped between familial love and the creeping dread sinking deeper into her spirit. The abyss beneath called her name like a lover, laced with sweet poison. "Stop!" she shouted, her voice breaking. "You're not real." But the shadows only laughed, the sound resonating like nails on a chalkboard. The darkness surged, stretching toward her children, who remained entranced, eyes wide, bodies frozen in fear. Trembling, Sarah moved to shield them, but an eerie grip held her still, pulling her toward the void. Tom shouted again, but the surge of whispers drowned him out. "Join us, Sarah, it'll be easier this way." Her breath hitched. Were they right? Was this truly the only way out? "No, I refuse," she cried, drawing upon the flickering flame of love buried deep within her. Love for her children, for Tom, love that flickered despite the overwhelming despair. "You will not take them!" The shadow shrieked, recoiling as she cast her will against their monstrous forms. She felt a sudden surge of heat ignite around her. The ghostly figures momentarily faltered. But they were quick to regroup, rage boiling in their throats, and the shrieks turned to wails that clawed at her sanity. "Give in! Embrace the darkness!" They shrieked in unison, their multitude of haunting voices weaving a tapestry of despair that threatened to ensnare her completely. "No!" The word burst from her lips, a declaration of her refusal to succumb. She had felt their hunger. She had thought of giving in, but she chose love over torment. Clenching her fists, she felt the warmth of shimmering memories flood her mind, of dance parties in the living room, bedtime stories, laughter shared. Each memory filled her with light, dancing in defiance of the shadows. She wouldn't let them win. With a sudden lurch, she called out to Tom, focusing on him, on the sacrifices he had made. "I love you," she yelled, pouring every ounce of her heart into the words. In that instant, an explosion of blinding light burst from her, illuminating the darkness that engulfed them. The shadows recoiled, howling in a cacophony of grief and rage as the light engulfed them in a brilliant blaze. Then everything stilled. Silence fell heavy like a thick blanket. Her heartbeat raced, echoing in her ears against the quiet. Had she done it? Cautiously, she turned toward Tom, searching for his glow, but he was gone. Instinctively, her eyes darted to the abyss below. It had narrowed, the gaping maw receding as if disturbed. "Mom!" Emma's voice broke through the tension, eyes wide with a vivid spark of life. "Emma!" Relief washed over Sarah, and she gathered her children in her arms, drawing them close. But a new whisper floated through the air, chilling her to the bone. "You can't escape the bond. We will return." As that sinister echo faded, shadows danced at the edges of her vision, lurking just beyond the bright light of her love. It wasn't over. Not yet. What horrors could still await them? And would love be enough to fight back the darkness that still hung in the air? The light flickered, then dimmed, pulling Sarah back into the somber reality. Breathing heavily, she scanned the area, dread clawing at her throat. The shadows melted into the periphery, skirting away like frightened animals. But the silence was deceptive, like a calm before a storm. "Mom, what just happened?" Emma's voice quivered, filled with confusion. "Stay close. We need to." Before she could finish, a sickening chill filled the air, wrapping around Sarah's limbs like a vice. A cold that sank deep, twisting her stomach, twisting her resolve. "Sarah!" A sharp whisper cut through the tension. It was Tom's voice, echoing from the depths of the dark, fraying her already tattered nerves. "Tom!" she responded, scrambling to break free from the tendrils of shadow that seemed to want to bind her. They slithered closer, hungry, insatiable. Their laughter was hollow, an echo of mockery. "We're not safe yet," she shouted, pulling Emma and her son, Ethan, with her into the light that felt more like a fragile thread than a shield. A figure emerged from the shadows, indistinct yet hauntingly familiar. It was both a comforting shape and a nightmare. It wore Tom's form, but the eyes that met hers glistened with something sinister, with a hunger she recognized all too well. "Do you see, Sarah? Love only makes you vulnerable," it taunted, lips curling into a cruel smirk. "No," she gasped, taking a step back, instinctively shielding her children. "You're not him. You can't hurt us." The voice twisted, contorting between Thomas and something otherworldly, a malevolent force. "Oh, but I can. I always could." Darkness lies within you all. It's who we really are. The shadows pooled around the false Tom, billowing like a storm. They beckoned with tendrils of despair, reaching for Sarah's children. Emma whimpered, her eyes wide with fear, while Ethan shook in her hold. Look at them, Sarah. So easy to break. So easy to take. No! Sarah screamed, pushing against the grip of horror that threatened to seep into her soul. The glow around her began to dim, flickering as doubt crept in. Embrace the darkness, Sarah. The voice danced through the air, an intoxicating whisper that promised liberation from pain. You could be free. Let them go. She shouted, squeezing her eyes shut, conjuring every ounce of memory, every joy, every moment of beauty that she had fought for. With desperation boiling up, she thrust her hand toward the shadows. You will not take my family. I will fight. A surge of heat buzzed through her, a new light breaking against the encroaching darkness. The fake Tom recoiled, rage etched on its face. Fight? You think this will work? It was mocking now, the shadows swirling around it, forming wails of anguish. They were angry, furious she dared to resist. But Sarah held firm. You think love is weakness? It's my strength. With every ounce of love poured toward her children, the shadows strained and hissed, their forms blurring in despair. They were losing grip, yet just as it seemed the tide might turn, a cold wind swept through the air, and with it came a terrible, chilling sound. A cacophony of unearthly cries echoed through the void, a flood of torment that chilled Sarah to the bone. They weren't just shadows, they had voices, too. The voices of her past, the joy laced with sorrow, cries for the loved one she had lost. We are Legion. They wailed. We are your regret, your past. You cannot eliminate what is embedded in your heart. With horror dawning on her, Sarah stumbled backward as the swarm grew, a terrifying entity that threatened to engulf everything light. Mom, what are we going to do? Emma cried, clutching her little brother tightly. As the shadows bore down, Sarah's heart raced. The darkness was coming for them, and she could feel it leeching away her hope. What if love was not enough? Could she protect them from this relentless tide? The wretched shadows howled in triumph, threatening to overtake them. Your end is inevitable. The whisper shuddered through Sarah's limbs, sending a bolt of terror deeper than the bone. Could they truly survive this unending nightmare? And would their love be enough to break the cycle of darkness awaiting just beyond their grasp? Sarah's breath came in ragged gasps as the shadows writhed closer, their whispers a toxic tide sweeping through the air. She clutched Emma and Ethan tighter, willing herself to be a shield against the encroaching despair. The echoes of her past clawed at the edges of her mind, desperate to consume her, but she couldn't let them. Think, Sarah. Focus. She whispered fiercely, forcing her mind to clear. She thought of Tom, not the shadowy silhouette that mocked her, but the man she loved, the protector she depended on. With every ounce of will, she desperately grasped for that memory, clinging to it like a lifeline. The false Tom inched forward, its face contorted in glee. You think memories can save you? They only seal your fate. Just let go. No. Sarah's voice boomed, surprising even herself. You don't get to choose who I am. My love is stronger than your darkness. The intensity of her conviction ignited a light, a brilliant flash that cut through the thick veil. For a brief moment, the wretched form shrank back, howling in agony as if her words were fire burning their essence away. Mom! Emma whimpered, eyes fixed on the swirling mass. What's happening? Hang on. Sarah spat. She closed her eyes again, grasping for any glimmer of hope in a situation that felt hopeless. Suddenly, she heard it, the faint chime of laughter, warm and innocent. It was her mother's laughter, echoing in her heart like a distant song. Joy wrapped around her like a blanket, pushing back against the biting cold that threatened to consume them. I love you, Sarah whispered, feeling the warmth pulse through her, along with the pain, the loss, and the longing. And I will not let you have them. Her words rang like church bells in the dark, reverberating against the shadows, jolting her children into clarity. Ethan lifted his head, staring into the void with newfound determination. I'm not afraid. He shouted, surprising himself. Sarah felt something shift in the atmosphere, a tension loosening just enough for her to feel the first threads of power slip through her fingers. With a deep breath, she opened her eyes and extended her hands, cradling the light that pulsed from the very essence of her being. "Stay with me, kids," she commanded. As they clasped hands, a fierce shield began to form around them, warmth radiating, pushing against the storm of darkness. For a moment, Sarah felt a unity stronger than she had ever known. They weren't just fighting shadows, they were fighting for each other, but the malicious laughter of the entity grew louder, echoing off unseen walls. "Futile. Your light is weak, insignificant." It roared, but Sarah felt the resolve harden in her chest, an iron shield against the madness. "We'll see about that." The brilliant warmth surged, and for the briefest moment, the shadows flickered uncertainly, recoiling from the family unit. But then the energy fizzled, struggling to hold against the rising tide of despair. "You cannot fight who you truly are." The false Tom screamed, the shadow swirling around him, latching onto the vulnerable cracks of Sarah's resolve. And then she felt it, the cold, clammy fingers of doubt creeping in, the memories of past failures, moments of weakness. Memories of a time when she was lost, when belief faltered. They threatened to bring her down, even as she fought to push them away. Despite the horrors, she clung to the shadows of hope. She had to find a way to turn this tide. Then she remembered, there had to be a way to seal the darkness, diffuse this malignant force. Just as her senses heightened, the shadows surged with a deafening roar, rushing like a tidal wave. "Sarah!" Emma cried, terror painting her small face. How could she fight something that wasn't just a monster but an embodiment of her very own fears? Then it clicked. The realization hit like a thunderclap. What if she wasn't just fighting for the light, but to confront the very darkness within herself? What if embracing her past instead of fearing it could turn the tide? And beneath the deep, chilling wailing, Sarah's heart raced with the thought. Perhaps the only way forward was to face the darkness head-on, but could she do it? Could she confront her deepest regrets, her harried fears? Before she could respond, the shadows lunged, surrounding them like a beast diving to devour its prey, and in that critical moment, she realized the answer was slipping through her fingers. Could battling her inner demons illuminate the path to saving her family, or would it consume them all in the end? Sarah's heart hammered in her chest as the shadows lunged, twisting around her and her children like a living shroud. The air crackled with a palpable terror, oppressive and thick, as if the darkness itself had weight. She could feel the chill seep deep into her bones, but she pushed it away. She had to. "Ethan, Emma, listen to me," she yelled, her voice strained with fear. "We need to think. Focus on something that brings you strength." Her children exchanged glances, eyes wide, fear clawing at their throats, but they nodded. "Mom, what do we do?" Ethan asked, his voice small amidst the roaring cacophony of shadows. "Remember the stories we heard?" Sarah urged. "The ones about facing your fears? This is just like that. We have to embrace the light within us." The darkness writhed, mocking her words. "Light? You believe in fairy tales. You think shadows cower from a child's whimsy?" It hissed, climbing closer, stealing her breath. Sarah felt her resolve start to crumble beneath the weight of its contempt, but she couldn't let it in. Not now. That childhood laughter echoed again, pulling her focus. She clung to it, threading her fingers tightly around her children's hands. The warmth surged, momentarily illuminating the darkness. The feeling rushed through her like a river, vibrant and alive, mingling with the laughter. "Mommy!" Emma suddenly squeaked. "What if it knows our fears? What if it can see? Then we show it ours first." Sarah's voice blazed with fierceness, overriding her own doubts. "We're not afraid of our fears. It's just a part of us, and any part can be conquered." The shadows twisted, letting out a chilling wail that reverberated around them. "You don't know what you're asking for. You are nothing but a flickering flame snuffed out in the wind." The cacophony of screams rose, enveloping them. But Sarah remembered what had haunted her, the guilt of not being at Tom's side when he needed her most. The fear of failing as a mother. The regret of words left unspoken during the last argument. Somehow, she had to thrust these fears into the open. I did fail. I didn't stand up when it counted. But I won fail my kids. I faced my demons back when it was frighteningly real. And I did not break then. Sarah exclaimed, letting the heat of truth roll through her. The shadows recoiled slightly, sensing a shift in their hold. Those words will not shield your children. You think you're special? You belong to despair, just like everyone else. The shadows taunted, drawing nearer again, each whisper chilling Sarah deeper. Yet, as fear gripped her heart, she felt warmth ripple just behind it. The love she had for her children surged bright, clashing against the despair. No! You're wrong! She shouted, her voice cutting through the howling wind of despair. They deserve more than this. As she selfishly embraced her distant memories, the laughter, the warmth and unyielding light ignited from within her core, forcing the shadows to wail with anguish. The light seemed to burn, to devour the encroaching blackness. But strong figures swathed in shadows that were once familiar loomed behind her, the manifestations of her past mistakes. They towered over her, remnants of everything she'd lost, every missed opportunity, every moment of hesitation. Face us. The false Tom grinned maliciously, the echo of her memories distilled into this wretched form. You will never be free. We are part of you. Tremors of doubt flickered in her mind like wildfire, but Sarah clenched her teeth. You don't own me. You are a part of me, but you do not define me. With a defiant shove, she leaned into her light, catalyzing it into a blinding radiance. Howling shadows recoiled. For a heartbeat, it felt as if she could vanquish the darkness, her truth could crush it. But could she really turn the tide? Could her light withstand the relentless tide of her fears flooding in? Just then, silence filled the void, broken only by her breathing and the soft echoes of Emma and Ethan. What if it isn't enough? Emma whispered, a shiver coursing down her spine. Would it be enough? Before Sarah could respond, the shadows reformed, surging forward with renewed ferocity, the false Tom melding back into the dark mass, daring her to surrender. The final push was coming, and the fear clawed at her throat. What if her light flickered and died? Was it possible she couldn't fight alone? Could the shadows truly consume them all? The air thickened, a tangible choking grip tightening around Sarah and her children. The shadows lunged again, black tendrils reaching for them, pulsing like a living heartbeat of fear. Every instinct screamed at her to run, but her feet felt glued to the ground. Mom! Ethan shouted, his voice barely cutting through the rising storm of despair. What if we can't do it? What if we fail? Listen to me, all of you. Sarah shouted back, her hands shaking. We can't show them our despair. We must find our courage together. The darkness hissed, its contempt palpable. It mocked their efforts with eerie echoes of laughter that sent chills racing down Sarah's spine. She could feel the shadows creeping closer, suffocating her resolve. Doubt speared through her heart, but images of Tom burned like coals in her mind. She could not falter now. Okay, she breathed, rallying her thoughts. What makes you brave, Ethan? What do you remember? A flicker of understanding crossed Ethan's features. We played soccer, right? Remember when I scored the winning goal? Yes. That's it. Sarah encouraged, her voice straining against the chaos. Hold on to that feeling. Like the game mattered. Emma's small voice quivered. What if we can't reach the light? What if it's too far away? We're not meant to reach it alone, Sarah replied fiercely. We're together in this. We push through. The shadows recoiled, sensing the shift, but they were far from defeated. You think your memories will save you? They will only lead you deeper into despair. It sneered, wrapping around them, suffocating the light. With a surge of defiance, Sarah squeezed her children's hands tighter. Forget what it says. Remember every moment when you felt loved. When you laughed or felt joy. Focus on that. Suddenly, the laughter from the distant past surged from Christmas mornings, birthday parties, and family trips, the echoes teeming with warmth and hope. She could feel the light igniting again, swallowing little pieces of darkness. In a frenzy, Sarah shouted, "More! Let us bring it all! Every flicker of joy! Every loving moment!" Simultaneously, they screamed out their memories. The park. The ice cream truck. Silly jokes. Each light, no matter how faint, seemed to re-energize them, a collective brilliance ripping through their fear. The darkness screamed, shrieking in agony as they banded together, the light pulsating and growing, the warmth flooding their bodies, but then, the sinister forms of the shadows shifted. From their depths, vague shapes formed faces of lost loved ones, twisted and distorted, manifesting Sarah's greatest regrets into horrific realities. Tom became a mocking specter trapped in a stream of shadows, laughter transforming into accusing shouts. "You abandoned me!" he roared, an amalgamation of every fear Sarah had locked away and every hard word spat under strain. "Shut up!" Sarah screamed, breathing heavily, the weight of sorrow crashing over her like an avalanche. "You aren't real. You're just my mistakes shaped to frighten me. Does your light feel so strong now?" "You can't get away from us," the false Tom taunted, the shadows thickening, each word a dagger of pain. Ethan's face paled, and Emma clutched her mother's arm. "What do we do now, Mommy?" For a moment, Sarah faltered. The darkness threatened to consume them, wrapping tighter as her resolve trembled. "Fight harder," she spat, her heart racing. "We must dig deeper. Remind each other of our love, our strength." But as the shadows surged once more, she couldn't help but wonder, would love truly be enough to break the endless cycle of despair? In that moment of doubt, the shadows seemed to pulse with sinister eagerness. "You believe you have the strength? Face the ultimate truth, each of you carries darkness within." Sarah's heart dropped. What else had they hidden from themselves? What truths lay buried, waiting to be exposed? Was the light in them strong enough to confront what they had buried deep within their own hearts? Sarah's heart raced as she stood in the encroaching shadows, her children's faces reflecting both fear and yearning. The darkness whispered, taunting her with memories of loss, guilt, and fear. "You can't escape what you are," it hissed, swirling closer, hungry to ensnare her in its suffocating embrace. "Think of all the love we've shared," Sarah shouted, forcing her voice to command over the sinister cacophony. "Focus, everyone. Remember the laughter, the joy, the light." Ethan squeezed her hand like a lifeline. "Mom, what if it's too late? What if we can't win?" "No." Sarah's voice rang out, solid as steel. "This isn't just about light versus dark, it's about love prevailing over fear. We have to embrace everything, even our darkness. It doesn't define us. It's just a part of who we are. We face it together." The shadow shrieked, writhing in response, faces twisting into grotesque forms of loved ones lost, reminders of pain. But Sarah felt her resolve harden. "We are a family." She resisted, focusing on every memory of love, a swirl of pizza nights, summer trips, bedtime stories, and reassuring hugs. "Think, remember," she urged, feeling warmth build from within. Emma chimed in, "I remember the time we baked cookies, and all of us got flour everywhere." "Yes. Just like that," Sarah encouraged, the light igniting further. "Come together. Every moment fuels us." As they summoned memories of joy and laughter, the shadows recoiled, hissing in agony. The warmth pulsed brighter, threatening the consuming blackness. In that moment of synchronicity, those bonds with her children felt like an electric current, igniting fires against despair. But the darkness was relentless. "Fools!" it roared, the echoes of their past growing louder, sharper. "You can't stand against the truth of who you are. Then let us face that truth." Sarah shot back, spurred by the thought of Tom, who had witnessed and shared each joy and sorrow with her. Out of the shadows came a grotesque silhouette of Tom, its grin twisted as it hissed, "You left me to die." The bitterness cut through Sarah, striking her heart. "You're not him," she countered, forcing herself to stand. "You're merely the pain I've carried." As her voice broke the spell, she felt a flicker of light surging within her, as if Thomas' true spirit was pushing through the weight of darkness. "He lives on in me." "Mom!" Emma cried, her voice quaking with fear yet flickering with defiance. I feel it. I feel love, too. She turned to her brother, who nodded, his expression resolute. We can beat this thing together. In that moment, everything shifted. Sarah poured all the love she had, the bond forged through trials and triumphs, into a radiant surge. I love you, she declared, the words resonating, amplifying into the atmosphere like a shockwave. I won't lose you to this horror. With renewed strength, the three of them clasped hands, channeling every moment of joy, every fit of laughter, every fragment of hope. The shadows recoiled, stealing away from the brilliance they erupted. No! The darkness shrieked, vines of black curling away as love flooded through their combined presence. But then the shadows surged back, regrouping as a tempest swirling around them, heavy with essence. You think this plasma can defeat us? You will fall. They screeched, piercing through the walls of the light that they had constructed from love. Sarah felt her confidence shatter like glass. Doubt crept in, the air thickening around them once more. Can we really protect it? She whispered to herself, but the children's grip tightened against her resolve like a tether. Mom! Ethan shouted through gritted teeth. Remember when we said we'd always face the dark? We can't back down now. Suddenly, the shadows hesitated, their momentum shifting. With a deep breath, Sarah pushed past her fear and raised her voice. You are not my failures, you are not my darkness. You're just echoes of the past. I embrace you, but I won't let you control me. With those words, a blinding light exploded around them, lifting them high above the treacherous void. The shadows writhed in agony, their forms dissipating against the radiant glow. Together, they ascended, the bright light pouring through cracks in the plummeting weight of the abyss. We did it! Emma exclaimed, bewildered yet triumphant, but Sarah felt a lingering ripple of uncertainty. No! It's not over! The darkness snapped back, morphing into a portal of shadows, talons grasping desperately toward them. Let us go! Sarah bellowed, tightening her grip on her children. You will not take my family. And then, with a fierce shout of defiance, they launched themselves towards the heart of the darkness, the very core of shadow that sought to claim them, holding fast to hope and love that intertwined amongst the pain. Yes! Sarah cried out, a visceral battle cry fueled by the might of their unity. We are light and dark. And we choose love. As they collided against the darkness, it exploded in a blinding flash. Fragments shimmered across the night sky, dissipating into thousands of glimmering stars. The silence enveloped them. They stood together at the edge of a newfound dawn, the weight of terror swept away like smoke in the wind. Mom? Ethan asked, trembling. Did we do it? We did, Sarah whispered, her heart swelling with unyielding love as she embraced her children tightly. But we will remain vigilant. Shadows never truly disappear. And standing there, they watched the sun crest over the horizon, vivid hues painting the sky, igniting hope against the remnants of darkness. Together they would face whatever lay ahead, knowing love was their shield against whatever shadows may come. As they turned to walk back hand in hand toward home, deep in their hearts, they understood this fight was part of who they were: brave, whole, and fundamentally united. And in that moment, Sarah knew they would soar through any storm, for love illuminated the path ahead, banishing fear and fragility to the farthest corners of their souls. This was their moment. Now, dear friends, if you loved this conclusion, you need to subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and keep these amazing tales coming. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this ending. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Let us build a community that stands together, daring to face the darkness.